guys, welcome back to another episode of Ask North Arrow. Here with Casey, I'm Levi, and our question today was, what's your thoughts on fasted cardio?
So like an intermittent fasted cardio workout is the question. Okay.
Right, so what's your thoughts on getting your cardio in before you've basically eaten anything? So Casey's a great person to ask because about a year ago, he started dabbling into intermittent fasting and then basically stuck with it for about 10 months or so.
Yeah, I've intermittent fasted almost all of last year.
Yeah.
So basically, what I did with intermittent fasting was I would stop eating at a certain time in the evening, and then I wouldn't eat again until a certain number of hours the next day. And so I started by not eating for like 12 hours, and then I went 13 hours, and then 14. I got to where I was not eating for 16 hours, and then I would just eat during an 8-hour window.
Okay. But a lot of those, so a chunk of that fasting time was while you were sleeping.
Yeah, so I would stop eating at like 8 o'clock at night,
Yep.
8, 9 o'clock, something like that, and then I wouldn't eat until about 11 or 12 o'clock the next day. So I won't necessarily get into all of the potential benefits of intermittent fasting. It's all... I don't know if I'd say there's real concrete evidence to prove any of these things, but they say that it helps with how you're regulating how your insulin should function properly in the body. When you eat all the time, it kind of slows down the proper function of insulin. They say that when your body stops all of the digestion process, it can work on other processes in the body that get slowed down when you're constantly digesting food and going through that process. And then they say the benefit that I was really getting into in terms of doing your cardio when you're fasted, the big benefit is training your body to be able to use fat for fuel. Now, you're still going to use carbohydrates. Your body functions by using carbohydrates and fat for fuel. But what you can do is train your body, like if you go to run and you haven't eaten in 15 hours, it's going to have to get fuel for somewhere. And so it can start to adapt to be more efficient at using fat than if you were to not ever intermittent fast. And so,
that makes sense.
But the caveat to that, like if you go out and you run a zone 2 run, that's perfect, right? You're keeping your heart rate below a certain level where the body will naturally want to use a higher percentage of fat than it would normally would. You're always going to use carbs and fat. And your percentage of carb is always going to be higher than your percentage of fat. Generally, everybody's body is different. I'm sure as I say this, somebody's going to stare at the video and go, nuh-uh. Generally. And so by going out to run for, say, 45 minutes or an hour, in zone 2, your body will become more efficient at using fat for fuel. Where that doesn't work is if you go out to do intervals, or you're going somewhere, some type of workout like a CrossFit or a boot camp at your gym or something that's really going to high intensity get your heart rate up. When your heart rate gets going, your body is looking for carbs for fuel. That's just the way the body was created and functioned. And so what I would do is on days I knew I had like easier zone 2 cardio work, I would do it fasted. And I started by just doing like a 30 to 45 minute run fasted, and then I did 45 minutes for a while, and then I would squeeze it into an hour. So eventually I got to the point where I could go out and do an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes fasted at a pretty low heart rate. But I worked my way up to that. Just like I didn't just go, all right, time to intermittent fast and start, with 16 hours. I worked my way up to that.
Did you feel like when you were doing these workouts, are you feeling like you don't have energy, or how did you feel?
No, I generally felt pretty good once I got accustomed to it. But what I was going to say, like if I had like a bike interval or something where I was going to work really hard, I wasn't doing those workouts until I had eaten. And so those would be like an afternoon workout because like I said, if I'm going to the track and I'm going to run hard, my body's looking for carbs and I want to fuel that way, and you want to keep your body adjusted to it. I'm going to make this video longer than I want, but there's a pretty good study out there where they took 2 groups of cyclists and they put one on like a really low, almost no carb diet, and then and these are like pretty elite athletes, like It's not your run-of-the-mill athlete. They did baseline testing, so they knew everybody was pretty even. And then they put one set of athletes on almost no carbs, almost like a keto diet.
Yeah.
And then they kept the other group normal, super high carb. You know, these athletes are probably eating 65% of their calories or
Right.
carbs. And then they continued to do testing. And when they were doing really low effort testing, the group with no carbs was keeping up just fine. And then they started doing like race simulation, like Tour de France style, like
Sure.
crazy intervals, or like, you know, in a race you're pedaling along and somebody sprints off in front of you and you have to react to that sprint. And the people that were not eating the carbs suffered. They couldn't keep up with the guys that had been eating carbs. And I'm not a nutritionist or a scientist, but basically the way I understand it is that there's a chemical in your body that when you go to run hard,
Mhm.
that helps convert carbs to fuel. And when you stop eating carbs and using them for fuel, that hormone or chemical or whatever it is functions not as well.
Okay.
And so what I would do to make sure that my body was really good at using fat as well as carbs, because there's gonna be times in a race or during a workout where you want to be able to push hard,
Sure.
is I would carb up basically before a hard workout.
Okay.
So about 2 hours before super hard bike interval, I'd get a really heavy carb meal
Yeah.
so that my body was ready for hard effort.
I was going to ask you, how long after that meal to the intense workout would you? And you said about 2 hours.
About 2 hours is usually what and that's different for every person.
Sure.
It might be 3 hours for somebody, it might be an hour for somebody. But
Right.
that was kind of my window, about 2 hours, 2.5 right in there, and then I would be ready to use it as fuel. So,
Yeah.
so I think basically, I think it can be a really great thing, especially if you're an endurance athlete that's, you know, going out like ultra runners. I mean, a lot of ultra runners are not getting their heart rate super highly elevated even during a race.
Right.
And so if you get used to fasted cardio and using fat for fuel, it can become a amazing tool, because you just don't have to rely
Right,
so
you can
much
pull
on
from
race
different energy
nutrition. Yeah,
sources.
yeah, for sure. So it can be a really good thing. My caveat would be work your way up to it.
Yep.
I would even say it probably is not for everybody. I'm sure there are going to be people that try it that feel like trash, and that's just everybody's body is so drastically different.
Yeah.
Say do your research.
Yep.
Your due diligence. Don't
then
believe
start
everything
out.
you see on the internet. Wink, wink.
And then start out in increments and work your way.
And start your way out in increments, just like with anything.
Yeah.
Start out with increments and slowly ease into it. And so I think it was a very good tool for me. I think I gained a lot from it. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Cool.
Yep.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Remember to submit your questions to asknortharrow@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.